words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to God, our Creator. Let justice roll down. When will justice roll down for all people? When will it not matter if one is rich or poor, black, brown, or white, citizen or immigrant, homosexual or heterosexual, Christian, Hindu, Muslim, Jew, or any other religion, or if one is old or young? When will justice roll down to all people? In 1963, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., in his famous letter from the Birmingham jail, used the quote from Micah 5:24, "Let justice run down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream." Isn't that stream just a trickle now? Or can we all work together to have it run down like the mighty Niagara Falls? In Proverbs 24:23, we read, "These things belong to the wise. It is not good to show partiality in judgment." But we see that all the time, don't we? Rich people who receive prison sentences get it deferred for many reasons. Currently, because of the virus. Friends of politicians often get pardoned. The rich use many loopholes so they don't have to pay their fair share of taxes. The book of Proverbs, as well as many other biblical texts, defines ways that are just. In Proverbs 27a, "He who gives to the poor will not lack, but those who hide their eyes will have many curses." How many people do not have their eyes opened so they see what problems exist? In Luke 6, we read, Jesus said, "Blessed are you poor, for yours is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you who hunger now, for you shall be filled. Blessed are you who weep now, for you shall laugh. Blessed are you when men hate you, and when they exclude you, and revile you, and cast out your name as evil, for the Son of Man's sake. Rejoice in that day and leap for joy, for indeed your reward is great in heaven. For in like manner their fathers did to the prophets. But woe to those who are rich, for you have received your consolation. Woe to you who are full, for you shall know hunger. Woe to you who laugh now, for you shall mourn and weep. Woe to you when all men speak well of you, for so they did to the fathers, to the false prophets." Where is their justice for those who can't pay a fine or bail, and are often jailed or imprisoned for minor offenses, and often receive long sentences? We in the United States have more people in prison than any other country in the world. Some states do not even have a mandated age for what is considered an adult in the judicial system. There are children in prison who are serving life sentences. There are many people who are in prison simply because they were trying to protect themselves or a loved one from violence. Are you aware that 1 in 28 children has at least one parent who will be in jail or prison during their childhood? While I'm at it, what is happening at our southern border is a crime. And the criminals are those who are separating the children from their parents and putting them all in cages without proper food, shelter, or medical care. There are to date 545 children so far that have not been reconnected with their parents because they do not know where they went or where they were sent after their separation. If another country was doing the same thing, we would be angry about that. So why aren't more people speaking up about this injustice? We're all immigrants or descendants of immigrants, and someone allowed us to come in. Or we are descendants from people who forced their way in, or descendants of those who were brought in as slaves. Where is their justice for those people who are poor and live on the streets and in the alleyways? Where is their justice for those who go hungry? Soup kitchens and food pantries are overwhelmed because so many people do not have jobs and do not receive decent wages. Yet food is thrown away every day. How is that just? There are many people who do not live close enough to medical facilities and do not have transportation to get medical care. Some people actually have a limb amputated because the doctors get more money and the hospital get more money from the amputation than if they had sought the cause for the limb dying and treated that instead. When many people were deinstitutionalized from the mental health facilities in the 80s and 90s, there were no arrangements made for their living conditions or any type of aftercare. So many ended up on the streets, in jails, and in nursing homes. Many people are weeping now because their loved ones are being attacked, bullied, abused, and are dying alone. There are people in our own country and around the world who are hated, excluded, reviled, and cast out because of their religion, nationality of birth, sexual orientation, gender, the color of their skin, past prison records, disease, intellectual differences, mental illness, and so on. The list goes on and on. Where is there justice for them? Where is God's love modeled toward them by others, by us, by you, by me? Have the privileged not heard Micah 6:8? He has shown you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require? But to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. What are you doing towards justice? Who are you helping to find food or even share a meal with? Who are you including in your circle, your community, or in your house of worship? We often hear or even say, there is no justice, or they don't treat people fairly. Yet some of the people who are saying this may even be the they that are being referenced. Who are you comforting or sharing someone else's grief with? What enemies from your past have you reached out to and perhaps sought forgiveness from? Have you sought forgiveness from those whom you have wronged? Have you prayed for those who have cursed you, been spiteful to you, demonstrated against you, rioted in your community? Have you prayed for your abuser and sought help for yourself? If someone strikes you verbally or physically, do you automatically strike back or wait to see if they are going to strike again? Do you talk to them about what made that person strike out at you? Or ask them to go to a mediator with you? Remember that God is kind to the unthankful and evil. We need to remember that we need to be merciful and just as God is merciful and just. Judge not, lest you too be judged. If we continue the eye for eye approach, we will all be blind. Then who will lead? If the blind person is leading another person who is blind, they will both end up in the ditch. If we continue with this life for life approach, we will have many more people dying, more people grieving, and much more anger and hatred. Who among us is going to be the voice for those who have been silenced by our societies and systems? There needs to be equal educational opportunities for everyone so that they are all equipped and we can have more job equity. There are some people who are not able to vote because there are no polling places in their county, nor is there public transportation to get them to a polling place to register and then to get them to the polling place to vote. Who among us will speak for those who live on the fringe of society, for those who have been disenfranchised, who have no voice because no one will listen? Who will be the voice for those who are being abused, are being ignored? Who among us will have who among us will be a vocal witness for those who are in jails and prisons simply because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong people, and yet received lengthy sentences? When Paul was in prison, he wrote a letter to the Galatians. Put on your whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, and against the rulers of the darkness of this age. We are dealing with massive flooding and fires, an invasive pandemic, and man's inhumanity to man, as well as the lack of concern for millions of poor around the world who do not have enough food or medicine. Tim Dearborn, in Reflections on Advocacy and Justice, wrote, "For Christians, the pursuit of social justice for the poor and oppressed is the decisive mark of being people who shall submit to the will and way of God." I believe that God's will is that we look at all of humanity as a beloved brother or sister, and in doing so, need to get in the way of injustice, or as Representative John Lewis said, get into good trouble. Andre Lorde wrote, "It is not our differences that divide us, it is our inability," and I might add our unwillingness to recognize, accept, and celebrate these differences. Children often do not see differences until they see or hear adults react to differences. While I was tempted to read the whole of Isaiah 26, I would encourage everyone to read it and see how it applies to this age. Isaiah 26, verse 7 reads, "The way of the just is uprightness." We need to provide equal justice to everyone, no matter the color of their skin, the way they worship God, their economic status, their political views, their gender, their sexual orientation, their developmental differences, their mental status, or citizenship status. We need to help provide human dignity and equality to all people so we don't have people living in the streets and alleyways, so we don't see jail or prison as a convenient way to solve societal problems. So we don't need soup kitchens and food pantries. We need to see all people as our equals. It's not just about budgets, taxes, labor unions, laws, social or safety nets. It's about each person being made in the image of God, and that each and every person has a soul. And no one is expendable in God's eyes, no matter how different they are from the one that we see when we look in the mirror. Change doesn't happen overnight, but it starts one step at a time. And yes, it'll take many more steps before we see much change. But standing still will not change anything. Ministry is most effective when we step outside of the four walls of our house of worship and into the community we are supposed to serve. Do you think that Martin Luther King would think we had made much progress in the past 57 years? When will justice roll down like water? Will you be involved in the process to make sure that it rolls down for everyone?